That's what's up. Hey, this your boy Dawson from D&D TV, also Dawson Speak. I just listened to a Periscope by Jamal Bryant, and I'm going to play that at the end of this video. Jamal Bryant just touched on a lot of issues that I agree with, and I know God must really be working on me because I usually never agree with anything Pastor Jamal Bryant says. I think that he is more of a motivational speaker. He's a good orator than he is a pastor, but he said some things today on this Periscope that I just had to agree with in every aspect. He talked about the Kim Burrell issue that has happened about 2 weeks ago. And he also talked about the passing of Bishop Eddie Long and those victims who have started to speak out now after Bishop Long's death. And what Jamal Bryant actually said in a nutshell is that the church can no longer ignore victims. They can no longer ignore the other, those people in the church that they consider nasty. And we can't ignore the fact that they are there. And basically, he's talking about people who've been molested, people who've been spiritually abused, and definitely people who are gay and lesbian who are in the church. I am glad that Pastor Jamal Bryant actually spoke on this issue because it was starting to really just drive me crazy that the church was so silent on the abuse allegations that came from Bishop Eddie Long, and no one said anything. Not even his church, not churches surrounding him. Like I told y'all, the only person I ever heard say anything, pray for Bishop Eddie Long and the victims was Bishop T.D. Jakes. And I think it is time for the church to have a conversation about sexual abuse and sexual misconduct that goes on in the church by many of the leaders and also people in the congregation. Now, I know Jamal Bryant doesn't have the best squeaky clean image, and he does seem like he have, a different kid popping up every other year. But nevertheless, I still have to say a shout out for just having the guts to say something, because obviously everybody wants to skate around this issue and all they want to do is take up money in the church, but they don't want to deal with the people in the church that have the issues, who go home depressed, who go home suicidal, who participate in risky behavior that will lead them to have sexual transmitted disease or put themselves in situations that they may get hurt or killed or get somebody else killed. And it has to be dealt with because victims, if they don't get the help that they need, and people who've been abused, all they do is turn back around and abuse you. And that's why we have so many people in the church now. It doesn't have to be a sexual type of abuse, but even with spiritual abuse, even with emotional abuse, you have people now that's so mean. It's like, why would I serve the God you serve when I walk in your church, you giving me the side eye? I ain't coming to see you. You ain't got no heaven and hell to put me in. So I commend you on this, Pastor Jamal Bryant. And definitely y'all check out, I'm gonna play this video at the end and, tell me what y'all think about it. It is time that the church stop skating around this issue and talk about the issue of sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, emotional abuse, and spiritual abuse in the church. Because the millennials now and the other generation, they're not taking this. They just sitting back. Church, the membership in churches around the world has declined. And there has to be something that's done because the Bible says, with loving kindness, I draw on thee. But OK, we can't see your love behind your homophobic rants. We can't see your love behind your adultery, behind your kids out of wedlock, behind you getting caught in a hotel smoking weed and cracked out. Where's your love? Where's your love when you lusted after the pastor? Where's your love when you tried to sleep with that woman's husband? Where's your love when you went and dropped those kids off? You know what I mean? When you went to the abortion clinic and you hid your sin and you just dropped them kids off in that vacuum cleaner right there. Where's your love? Not once, but 2 times you did that. Where's your love when you don't went out there and picked up prostitutes, when you don't went to the gay club, when you don't had them same sex experiences and said, oh, you found that out when you was in college, but nigga, now you 40 and you still doing this shit? Where's your love when you smoking weed, when you still snorting coke and leading the choir and you up here in the deacon board and even preaching us while you snorting coke? God really using you as a coke while you snorting us? And we don't know what you're doing, but when you get on something that you could piggyback on to beat other people down, the spiritual abuse, that's what people do in these church. So you know what? Hey, this was a good video. Jamal Bryant, thank you for that message. Like I said, I really don't rock with him like that. But on this, I got to give you your props, man. I really appreciate this. Y'all enjoy this video at the end. Peace.
I do not know how in this hour, and I'm walking a tightrope in Cirque du Soleil, that there are those who are crying out, and we don't even recognize the tears or the cry for help, that the body of Christ has said nothing about ministering to victims. And I know people are going to be upset with me. I know you don't want to talk about this, but here's the reality. We didn't talk about it in Bishop's life in these last couple of years. And at this point, many would argue it is inappropriate to deal with it on the day after his death. And maybe, and I don't know. I do know the church has to deal with it. We must deal with victims of abuse on every level. And yes, I understand that people come from varying degrees. But I want to ask you this as critical thinkers. How would the church, society, black people respond if the allegations were not boys, but girls? If the allegations were girls who said that they were in fact being groomed and taken out of the country, then at what point would we deal with it? Yes, forgiveness comes in, absolutely. But biblically, again, you ask for forgiveness. I'm not talking about legalities. I'm not talking about a contract. I'm not talking about insurance settlements. I'm talking about when will the church deal with abuse and issues. And when we talk about abuse, we minimize it to just physical, emotional abuse. And we don't say absolutely anything. Yes, the forgiveness is needed and necessary after there is an admittance of what is taking place in our churches, in our communities, in our sanctuaries, and our crime of being silent. The LBGT released last week that now 13% of the U.S. population falls under the banner of the LBGT community, and the church won't have a conversation. As a consequence of what happened last week, here it is, with Kim Burrell, we immediately went to emotionalism and absent of conversation. And we do not realize, here it is, that in dealing with it, we deal with just sexuality and not humanity. That we would, in fact, act as if we're talking about objects and not individuals. When these are our sons, these are our daughters. And we reduce it by saying, oh, it's just somebody in the choir. No, it's in the deacon board. It's in the pulpit. It's in the balcony. It's in the kitchen. And at some point, we're going to have a church conversation that says, here it is, that we acknowledge the humanity of every person, and it warrants a dialogue. I'm not telling you what your theology is. I'm telling you we owe the community a conversation. And right now, millennials and Gen Xers are standing back saying, is the church going to act like they're in a coma of consciousness? That they know absolutely nothing? So the church says nothing about the dialogue? You can talk about it on Ellen DeGeneres, but can't talk about it in Bible study? Y'all won't say nothing? And so if the appropriate protocol of that which is decent, that which is right, that we don't broker it right on the outskirts of death, can we then set it up that we have a earnest and true dialogue after the funeral? Because I gotta tell you this, we cannot cremate the issue. The issue is here. The issue demands redress. The issue demands conversation. The issue demands, hear this, patience and process and not dictation. Otherwise, hear me, what I'm getting ready to say to you, I'm getting ready to tell you, people getting ready to log off by the hundreds. If we don't have dialogue, discussion, conversation, and redress, you are nothing more than an apostolic trump. What is an apostolic trump? That we're just bullying people about what it is that we feel, what we believe, what we think, and if they disagree, then we banish them to Gilligan's Island. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, something dire needs to happen because the pews are bleeding. A generation is bleeding. I'm telling you, the largest church in America are members of a church called I Used to Go. You missed it. The largest church in America is the church called I Used to Go. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment to really reevaluate how we treat our sons and our daughters. That we call for grace and compassion when it's for us. But when it's somebody who ain't like you, somebody who doesn't think like you, oh, then all of that goes out of the ground. I'm telling you in this moment, while it is that both communities are grieving, the community of New Birth, the Long family is grieving, and those who never got closure, they're grieving. And here's what I need you to know. The church's responsibility is to minister to both. You're immature if you picking sides. We are not at war with either. Our job and responsibility is to heal both. Both need grace. Both need love. Both need compassion. Both deserve a conversation. And those of us who claim Christendom have got to extend both. And realize, where do we play in both? I'm not asking for a lawyer to mediate. I'm not asking for a judge to rule. I'm asking for those of you who boast the name Christian. He said, if you love me, feed my sheep. Feed the sheep who stay in the green pasture. Feed the sheep that stray. Feed the street sheep that bite your hand. Feed the sheep, watch this, that have black wool. And feed the sheep that don't even recognize your voice. But if you love them, you gotta feed them.